God. Oh my God. As God is my witness, he is broken in half.
Hey guys, it's WaifuGate here again. So this is that video that I promised you guys, the best out of 3 for Yorion, the epic matchup that we had against Jeskai Fires. At least I feel like it's epic. It was really fun. So I said before I'd cover the whole best of 3, so this is that coverage. You'll notice that the third game, like getting there, is going to be the same as in the deck guide. So if you've already seen the conclusion, there's that. But you can see how the first 2 games go here, if you are interested in that. So that's what we're going to be doing. And we'll probably do this like once or twice a week where we kind of cover one of the really good matches that we had for best of 3, just to kind of show you the sideboarding process, all of that. I feel like there's a lot that goes into the gameplay and narrating that normally doesn't come into play in the deck guides per se, because to keep those kind of succinct, we really need to like shorten the gameplay side of things. Otherwise I can't cover, like, you know, sideboard tech, good and bad matchups, all of that. It just takes a lot of time. And maybe once I get a little bit better, and here I was like, they might be Kurega, Tamir Reclamation type deal, because there's that list that Crokies and Danny T made a little bit popular. So I was just checking out their land to make sure I knew what I was up against. Because sometimes the ink lands or the full border ones like that kind of throw me off a little bit once in a while. See how mine looks different than theirs. I just need to make sure that they're on the colors that I think they are. So here we can either hold up Omen or invest in the Scry land, and I choose to do Omen. I think they actually just jam into Fairy 3 here, which throws off the whole match. Now they can't Mind Twist me here, like shut off all my hands, because I don't have any counter spells anyway. So this doesn't hurt us initially. Like right off the bat, like right at this moment, we're like, well, maybe we can ECD it. That's what we're thinking. I think I keep both of these. I'm pretty sure I just keep both, and the order doesn't matter because we're drawing once now and once for our turn. So we just draw. And then I think I go Scryland and then I bounce the Teferi, I believe is the order here. That way I have 4 mana next turn in case they try to develop ECD for some reason or play a creature like a Sphinx or whatever. Like they don't do that 9 out of 10 times. I push that counter to the bottom because I can't bounce to Fairy again, so I need another land before I need a counter spell there. 100%. So here we go. This doesn't make any sense to me. If someone in chat can describe why that would make sense to bounce my Omen in that situation, let me know. Because I just don't understand it. I'm baffled by it. So here we can either like Omen of the Sun, we can Omen of Sea to draw a little bit. We can do a lot here. I guess because it forces me to tap out during my turn if I want to deploy the Omen of the Sea again. Maybe that's the reasoning behind it. But giving me more draw power to draw into my ECD, to draw into my Mythos, to draw into anything really, another Brazen Borrower, it just doesn't make sense to me to bounce that Omen. Like, normally you can like justify a weird play here and there, but I just don't see it. I don't understand. So here we're just trying to decide, like, you know, what to kind of do. It's a really, really, really important turn. And normally, like, it would be okay to do cuts of these types of things. But I want you to see how long it takes me sometimes to think of the correct play. That it's important to use your timeouts once in a while, especially as a control player. I feel like that's important. Like some aspect of that is really vital. If you're not using your timeouts, it's a disadvantage sometimes. Now there's the other side of it that can go into, like, you know, time. If you use too much time in your first 2 or 3 games, you don't have enough time for game 3, you'll timeout concede automatically. And that is a valid point. But I feel like if you don't start using your timeouts efficiently and like thinking about it and making sure that you're going to time more often than you're not, if you don't switch gears, then you won't be able to find the right balance for the most part. So this makes it so that I can't like swing through at Teferi, even if I deal with the giant here. I'm not able to swing through. I think here I opt into just ECDing the Teferi, I believe is the play that I come up with, but it's really close. And so here we're just hoping that our opponent doesn't have another ECD, basically. And then we have this to block their Bone Crusher, which is pretty okay. You know, that's not bad. So they do have it, unfortunately. We do have the Mythos. We do have the Mythos, though, which is nice. ECD says hi. That wave. So we block here 100% because we don't have a Teferi to swing back at or anything. And then I think I just Mythos here, 100% just Mythos, and do that. And then I say in chat, I'm just like, well, not in chat, but on stream, I'm just like, hey, I hope they don't have a Teferi 3 for this. And I'm pretty sure they do. Okay, you just have that feeling sometimes, you know? And since that's a token, they're highlighting it to see what it says, making sure that it's a token and such, and that their Teferi 3 will actually work against it, instead of giving us, like, you know, Mythos back from the graveyard or something weird. Always good to check that stuff, by the way. Like, even if you're 100% certain, check again. So we get no card back to our hand. And at this point, it's looking pretty grim. Like, they've got pretty good board state, Teferi plus Bone Crusher. They've got Vantress for late game in case this drags on. And we've got Yorion here. Yorion can be okay, but if they have like another ECD or something, it's pretty weak. I think it is like the best play, though, that we have, is just that, and then playing the Scryland. Or not Scryland, the Tapland, I should say. Because we can't really afford to be missing land drops at this point. We need to be able to play more than one thing. So deploying the land's super important over cycling at the moment. Because if I cycle the land, I can't draw into an ECD. You need to be able to cycle into the card that you need and cast it that turn. Otherwise, it's just like kind of too slow, especially if you're super far behind. Very important stuff to consider. So they have Narset here, which is pretty tough. Really, really, really tough card to beat. I think they discard like a Cavalier to blow up the... Oh no, they discard Kenrith to blow up the Sky Nomad here. So here I believe that I take the damage so that I can backswing on Teferi or Narset. I believe I picked Teferi, though. Because I feel like being able to cast at instant speed is so important, because I have... How many counters main board? It's like 3 vetoes and... it's like 3 vetoes and 4 neutralize, I think. And neutralize, we can always cycle. And I think at this point, unless I shuffled or something from a Fabled Passage or whatnot, we do have 1 neutralize at the bottom of our library anyway. So maybe that's a consideration when I go to swing at this instead of the Narset. But to me, the Narset isn't too terribly important to deal with compared to the Teferi, though. Just being able to instant speed my stuff applies a lot of pressure. And I think even here, I end up... I think I end up bouncing the Bone Crusher and maybe shocking out the land here so I can double Omen, I think is where my mind was. Slowly coming back to me. I'm just like slowly remembering. I'm also thinking about the Brazen. So we could either do double Omen or Brazen, like whichever's important to do. So it's just taking me a minute. But you see, like, using the timeouts, thinking about it, so important with control, man. Just do it. Don't worry about it. Your opponent might be upset that you're quote unquote roping them, but just don't care. Don't cast that right now. What are you doing? And if you're constantly highlighting your cards like that, your opponent thinks about Brazen Borrower as well, like that you can flash it in an end of turn. Whereas sometimes they might forget, they might get a little tunnel visioned. So always something to consider. Try... And this is going to be another tips and tricks video. Try not to hover over things unless you really need to read them. Like, always read cards. Don't get me wrong. Always read the card, of course. But if you know what the card does and you're thinking about casting a card and you're not looking at it to read it, then don't highlight it for the most part. Just don't do it. Because otherwise you're telling your opponent that you want to do that. You're reminding them that you have another option. Same thing if you're highlighting your opponent's lands like this. If you go over here and you try to highlight their lands, it highlights them, lets them know what you're thinking, etc. It's just really, really rough. So yeah, they do Bone Crusher the Teferi. So now they can counterspell. So this is pretty rough. This is a lot of damage coming through because they can give that haste and trample. Not that the trample is relevant right this second, but we also can't shatter at instant speed because we minused Teferi there. So we flash in the Brazen just so we can hit the Narset. And then we also Omen because that curves us out. We put back the Blast Zone. Draw that. I wonder if the Blast Zone was useful. I don't think so. So it looks like I am going to just shatter here. Or I'm going to +1 shatter. Yeah, now I remember. Oh yeah, I think we might actually, like, this might be the lost game. I can't remember, dude. This match, this set, this best of 3 set was so good, man. Like, I can't even remember it. Just, I remember being super drained, and I'm still super drained from it. I'm recording this after it happened, like after the stream. WaifuGate after the stream, after stream hours. Pretty sweet. Like, you see me wearing the same shirt and stuff. Well, actually, you can't see the other webcams, so you can't. So they're going to swing at Teferi, and I think that I shatter. And then they just vomit on the table, I think. I think they just vomit on the table. So there might have been some merit to letting this go, basically. Because I think now they just go, like, Bone Crusher, Sphinx, Kurega, or something. Like, the next turn. Or they go Fires. They go Fires, and then they play a bunch of stuff. Not a bunch, but they play, like, Kurega or something. Like, I remember this being the swing point where they kind of got back into the swing of things. Oh yeah, they pitched like a Bone Crusher or something, or they pitched like a 3-drop at my Teferi, I believe. Yeah, it's Clarion. I don't know why they kept Clarion in. Like, I guess because it's a cheap answer to the token army that I usually have going on. That makes sense, I guess. But I mean, what if I have Trawler or something? Like, it doesn't really help you too much, right? Like, I don't know if that's a correct sideboard procedure. Like, I feel like I would want more counter spells, maybe less fires. Like, it just depends on how you want to run the deck, I guess. But so they play Cavalier. And Cavalier is not too bad because we can just chump him, right? Like, he doesn't have trample, so. And then we get Chemister's Insight, which is not terrible. If I wanted to hit a land drop, I should Chemister's now, but I'm checking my mana, and I'm just like, well, I'd really like to be able to Omen into a counter spell if it so happens to be that we get that lucky for it. Yep, still thinking here. I've got like the 1,000-yard stare in my like feedback, like my VOD. So Brazen isn't like terrible. I'm really considering this one. So I do keep the Brazen. So they +1 this, of course, because they don't want to -2 and just go down unless Teferi is a super big deal here. Like, I could see -2ing and then blowing up the Teferi. It also draws you a card, which is pretty significant. So at this point, I think I bounce the Cavalier anyway, and then I block it with the Son of the Omen of the Sun. And then I have to cast this now if I want to cast it. So I'm just like checking to see how much mana they have. See, I don't click on the lands. I don't highlight directly over them. I just count above the lands. That's the key. That's it. That way you don't tell your opponent what you're thinking. So they can -3 one of these to take away a blocker. They can see that my Teferi is at 3-2, so they know that I can bounce something end of turn, or and like close to the end of my turn. Like, they can bounce. I can bounce it on my turn basically, if they don't deal with it. So they do play Cavalier back out. They choose to discard. See here, no, nothing, which is just scary. And my face is just like just not happy with it. Tough. So I'm pretty sure they give this haste, because why not? Which means that we know that they can't do anything on my turn. Normally, you don't have to worry about that with fires anyway. So here I have to make a financial decision on whether I like want to do 2 chip damage off of a planeswalker, or if I just want to take 1 and have a chumper. Like, take 1 down. Oh yeah, and then they get to -3 the token, yep. Yep. Makes sense. Makes sense. So we do get the Shatter the Sky. We do get it. And then it's like a matter of whether I think they have like 4th Kenny. I think they've gone through quite a few at this point. So just a decision to be made here. See how I take my time though? You just gotta kind of chill out, relax, try to see what your best out is, try to think what it is. If you have one of those overlays, like MTGA Zone has one, Aether Hub has one, it kind of tells you your remaining cards and your percentage chance to draw them. Highly recommend that. Super great tool. Like, no matter which site you use, they're all usually pretty okay. So this would be a pretty sick Yorion, but I just don't have it. So here, I forgot about Clarion, I believe, and they just Clarion instead, because this looks like a really good turn, right? But then I think they just blow me out with Clarion. I'm like 100% sure this is the turning point. And they just discarded it, and they highlight their graveyard, which kind of indicates to me that they wanted to show me that they had Clarion still main decked against me for some reason. So I think they +1 the Narset here. Yeah. So that way they can gain a bit of life. That's something else that that Narset does in that list, in like Jeskai colors, that regular U-White doesn't really have the options for, which is life gain. And now this thing has life gain, the Cavalier does. So now they can just play like Kurega, and I think that's lethal. Yeah, it's lethal. If they pump once, it's lethal. Like 7 + 6. It's pretty close, at least. It's close enough. Yeah, they have the land, so that makes it lethal. And here's the sideboard process. So just try to figure out what I want here. Figuring Narset's good, Dispute's good versus Teferi, and everything else is pretty much like a hot medium. Like Casket, maybe Bone Crusher, but they have Teferi, so you don't want to just give them like freebies back. I removed Dream Trawler because most of the Fires lists run 4 times copies of Shark Typhoon. Sometimes they don't run any, but a lot of the lists run like, 3 to 4. So that's that. We're trimming the Birth. Making a little bit of trims here. 1 Omen. And then I think I do 1 Borrower. 1 Chemisters, yep. And we want to keep 6 ECDs in, right? Like the 4 and then the 2 from Mythos. Just so important to have copies of those because they win you the matchups. So we do end up trimming the Brazen, sorry. And we jump back in. They're also taking a while sideboarding. This is a really crucial part of the game. Super nice. So we play first, and this is a nice hand. This is basically perfect. Even the Field of Ruin I don't hate too much because that can deal, or no, that's a Blast Zone. So Blast Zone can deal with the opposing Teferi before we develop our own. I know we end up Blast Zoning for 4 at some point in one of these 3 games. I think it's this one. That's a bit of a spoiler alert. Whoops. It's fine though. You guys don't mind too much. Because now you have to think about what like leads us to that situation, right? So I think that I keep this Tail's End And this, because we can counter Teferi on 3, right? Like there's no way that they develop extra mana at this point in the game. So we know that we can go Tails End on Teferis, which is just super strong. And if our opponent does nothing, we have the proactive play of deploying 2/1/1s and gaining a little bit of life. And that cushion is nice in these matchups. It's just crazy good. So, and now we know they don't have veto or anything either because they didn't have any responses there, or they had full pass no matter what on their priority type deal. So now we're just chilling. I think they tried to jam in Sphinx and we just neutralize it. We want to stay ahead of the curve here. Just want to make sure that we have the power in this matchup because it's so important to stay ahead of fires. It's like a tempo aggro list where it just like tries to do really unfair stuff, man. And you just have to stay on top of that curve. Got to stay on top of the proactive plays. And you got to make sure your opponent doesn't resolve anything too spicy for you. So this play is pretty weak to... not a lot, honestly. Like Teferi Veto, I guess. And we pick up the Dispute. We're just getting best card here. Like... I mean, Tails End isn't the... it's pretty much the best card, right? Like, it's super great. Oh, they go Fires and they don't cast anything. I think the reason why they don't cast anything in here is because they can see the Dispute. It's not like they're sniping, right? They see the card because it's from Narset. Like, they know we have that. So what that tells me is they don't want to play land into Kurega because it'll get disputed. And they don't want to play into Dispute when they have Fires up because that's just giving me a free card. It's turning something that's completely dead for the rest of the game, basically, until I deal with Fires, which until I deal with Fires could mean that it's too late, you know? So here I'm deciding whether or not to Narset. We do it, and we pick up an Omen. Not a very hard choice since it was Omen, but it's still a great card. Still good. I'm thinking about Mythosing this Fires, which is just not worth it because I basically mind twist myself for 3, which is tough. Really, really tough. So we swing through, and then we hold up counter spells and chill. We still have Narset, so they can't like Cavalier of Thorns draw cards. They can't Kurega to draw cards. They're just locked in what they have for cards right now. Now, they might play the Kurega as like kind of a throwaway turn, just because they know that I have Dispute, so they don't want to like tap mana for like Shark Typhoon or do any of that type of stuff. They just want really, really, really safe plays. So they're playing Sphinx early here because they want to play around my Dispute in the long run. Like if I somehow deal with Fires of Invention, they somehow have to play around the Dispute. So they might as well play around it and just kind of chill and relax. And now I'm thinking like this might be a Bone Crusher that they're pointing at my creature. They do Brazen. So they were thinking about doing Petty Theft and bouncing one of my tokens rather than just deploying the creature, which is reasonable. Like all of it's pretty reasonable. And now I think they go to ECD than our set. I can't remember though. This matchup took a while, man. So we just put charge counters on this. This is, yeah. See, I tried to see how many charge counters I can put. Unfortunately, we're 1 mana shy of going up to 4 right now. So I'm just playing Omen of the Sea and chilling. Just chilling. And we know our opponent might have a Dispute now because we had a pause there. So we take the land, we forego the Narset. And then I think I move this Blast Zone up by 1, so I only have to move it up by 2 to hit Sphinx and stuff later on. Sphinx and Fires. I think those are actually the only 2 cards we hit with it too, which is sad. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm remembering wrong, but pretty sure I'm right. So we get another Dispute, which is like really dead right now, but once we can get rid of the Fires, both of those are kind of relevant since our opponent's a little shy on lands right now. So they know that they can't dispute us because we have the Dispute as well. This refreshes Narset to 5, which is why I didn't keep the second Narset to begin with. And I think they like cycle land end of turn or some garbage here. Pretty sure they do that. Yep. See, I'm getting a better recollection of games for sure. Thankfully, they don't have Tail's End here. Tail's End would have kind of hosed us there a bit. Losing our Narset, losing our Omen would be pretty rough. So we keep best card. Veto is just so good. Oh yeah, here I think I mess up real bad. I think that I Tail's End on Teferi instead of vetoing, I believe. Let's watch it. Let's see it again. It's gonna be tough. I'm just gonna hide my head in shame. Because I feel like I need to Tail's End to make use of the card. And there I say, like, I highlight my own card. I'm like, I should have used this. I'm an idiot. Because they can even just dispute this and it turns their dispute on, which is just terrible. Like, why give them a free card? It's so bad. Like, this matchup would have been so much easier. They bounce Yorion, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. They kill Narset, which is nice. I guess because you kill Narset is the reason behind that. That is pretty big. I'm also still at 24 against like almost like an aggro list, I would say. It's like a combo a little bit. So here I get Teferi for free. They have no blockers. I think I swing 3 at them just to be safe, in case they have like Shark Typhoons and whatnot. Like just so they can't block bounce or do something weird. Because I don't have Teferi, so they could have Brazen Borrower as well. And then I think I just pass, but I'm not sure. Because I want to keep up disputes and stuff in multiple cards. And then this is when I remember Blast Zone, I think. I start talking about it in chat. I'm just like, yo, Blast Zone seems really good right now. See, I'm highlighting my Blast Zone so they like know not to play any more 4-drops. For the most part, I'm giving away information or like giving away what I'm thinking about, which is information. Just sounds a little weird when I say it like that. I think they swing first, or they tried to swing before they develop Kurega. So they try to do Kurega, I just Tail's End it. So they just get hosed here. Because that's just too much, you know? And now they swing out. And then I think I might actually take this, dude. Wow, I actually take it. That's insane. Because looking back at it, I thought, like, as a player myself, I would probably pop that preemptively. And I didn't. I had really good patience there. Because it limits how much they can play this turn, right? Like, potentially. Like, if they have runner, it's pretty rough. So, oh, yeah, this is like... Oh, yeah, so that's why I didn't do it. Because I thought that I already had enough counters. So we just blow this up. We just boop it. And now I can triple block the Bone Crusher Giant here. I think they end up swinging just with a Brazen Borrower for like 2 or 3 turns here while they cycle lands and do omens and stuff. Like, it's not too difficult at this point to kind of pull the game away from them. Especially if they're not brave enough to like swing in with the Bone Crushers, get my blockers off the table. I can understand wanting to do it for like Shark Typhoon or something else to kind of chip away at the tokens or however else you want to kind of get there. But I think there I do definitely swing out, but maybe not. Maybe it's not correct. Maybe you're just supposed to keep Bone Crusher there so I can't swing my 1/1s in while you're also kind of low on life. So we don't swing here. We don't cast anything. We're holding up double veto, double mystical dispute, which is actually pretty relevant now. It wasn't before. Like, the mystical disputes weren't because of Teferi, and same thing with vetoes. So I can't double veto here. So I think what I do is I just like take the damage. I just block up. I need some food, dude. I'm getting some food after this video, man. Let me tell you what. I'm going to probably have some stuff. So they do just pay, which means that they can't give haste or boost our dudes. So like we take less damage in the air from Brazen Borrower, for example, which is actually pretty relevant at this point. Like every single life point counts. Every life point you gain and lose. Like this 2 from birth should be calculated into how much we can work with it, you know? So we rip the shatter off the top, which is just amazing, like so good. And they definitely just block here because like what could I have possibly that increases my monster's attack at instant speed? There's like nothing in the meta for the most part, for this deck at least. Like it wouldn't be making sense for me to run other stuff. Then I just shatter the sky, keeping open a veto. I think this game's pretty close to over. We do go down to 7 HP here. We take 4 there from the Bone Crusher, or not Bone Crusher, Cavalier of Flame trigger from the graveyard. So they just cycle. I think they draw and they quit here, if I can remember correctly. No, they just say go. Okay. Seems good. I'm just taking my time, making sure I have the right choices. And we pick up another Mystical Dispute. That's like number 3 or 4, I think. We know they have hardly any counter spells. They just have the disputes that they want to dump to resolve their first Teferi, so they don't have to worry about it, and then they just want to play threat, threat, threat. Teferi. I think I just veto this. Because even if they have ECD, like they don't really hit anything with it. You know, they hit Yorion and that's fine. Because then I think I just Mythos their Elspeth and hold up double dispute, and that's pretty much game. Mythos is such a good addition to this deck. Originally I wasn't playing with it. I just love it now. And maybe it's because I'm a little biased because I played it once and it seems to be working. Like I played it a few times, but you know, only in one deck. So I think I let this go through and then I just hold up veto for something else. Because I'm still not winning yet. I still don't have enough to win with. We just have really, really good pressure. So now we veto that, I believe, just to get it off the table, because that thing can deal with our planeswalkers later. Plus it gains them life and we have them so close to dead. And there we go. So there's the second game. And then the third game is coming right up. So we'll get back into that in just a sec. All right, so this is the gameplay for the best 2 out of 3 for the U-White Yorion control versus Jeskai Fires. Now, this was an unranked match. This is me making any small adjustments to the sideboard. We just had a crazy game too. I'm also gonna, because this is part of the deck guide, right? So what I'm gonna do for this whole thing, this whole process, is I will cover this whole best of 3 match because it was so good. All 3 games were very close. And I feel like it's some of the best Magic that I've played in a really long time. So it was just really, really enjoyable for me. Like here, I'm just really making sure that my sideboard's correct. Sometimes I check with chat too to see if they think that there is any sideboard adjustments. So I try to respond to chat, catch up, kind of take a minute to breathe during the sideboard process. Feel like you should really do that if you don't already. It's such a good tool. So you can like de-stress, untilt whatever's bothering you. Take a moment and realize that it's just a game of Magic. And while we want to win all of our games of Magic in a perfect world, it's not going to happen. At best, you're going to have like a 55-60% win rate or so over the course of your entire life, probably. So we definitely snap keep this hand. We've got a counter spell, we've got a shatter, which is very important in this matchup, and we've got the Scryland, we've got a Triome. Our lands are pretty good. So here it's pretty close. You can probably write an essay on which one you should start with, whether you should start with the Cry to look for a Mystical Dispute, or whether you should start with the Triome because you know you're going to play it anyway, and you might need the Scry later on in the game. There's also the argument that the Triome here could be cycled late game if we end up drawing 3 lands in a row, you know, it could give us a turn 3 play while keeping mana open for a counter. But here I just go Temple of Enlightenment. And we have no protection from Teferi here. But we are going to keep the land. And then we're just going to be chilling out, seeing what to do. So we set a stop here just to mess with our opponent to make them think that we might have a dispute or an opt or something. But, you know, it's just a bluff. So we remove the stop. They +1 here, I believe. And yeah, we just keep moving. So we've got Castle Vantress here. We can play either or, it doesn't really matter. Castle Vantress can kind of stress them out if we play that early. Because then they know that we have some late game. They can't just win the game from being very passive and like playing fires and doing this stuff with Castle Vantress, you know? Like their Castle Vantress will not be ours late game for the most part. We just come out on top. Usually they're all the time as the control deck. They're like the aggro list, so they have to win, you know? So here we go. We just +1 here. Just keeping Teferi super thick. Now that does play into ECD, and we have no target for that. So there might have been a play to -3 there. It would have moved it to 2, so even if they Shark Typhoon for 1, like looking back at it now, I probably should have minus Teferi. Even though it's minor, it is still a mistake, I feel. If we're like playing around Shark Typhoon or something, like it's fine to just deal with it, you know? I think we just eat it there. So we Chemisters here just to draw, trying to get closer to ECD territory or Mythos to copy their ECD if they happen to deploy one to deal with Teferi. Other than that, we're in pretty good shape. We're just chilling out, doing our thing. So they crack this, and I think that they do, unfortunately, play the ECD here, if my memory serves me correctly. They just slam it right on the table. Boom. And I think they even pick it up at this point, but I'm not sure. I think they might leave it for a turn. So they do leave it, which is pretty weak to our ECD if we had one. But if we had an ECD, we might have... Well, I guess we couldn't play it last turn because we didn't have the mana. But so now we have to make a decision on whether to Shark Typhoon here. There's a Shatter the Sky that's sort of blocked by the overlay there. So there's that. But it's fine. It's pretty visible still. It's pretty minor. Our Neutralize is pretty dead. I think we hold on to that until we actually cast it as a counter spell, though, which is pretty fun. So we just look for white here, I believe. That way we can get Ardent Veil online later on. That way we have the double white plus Ardent Veil. It's just easier to keep the mana open that way with more white sources. So... And here we can either draw with Teferi, we can threaten with a Shark Typhoon, etc. Like we get quite a few plays here. So we discard a Hollowed Fountain, drawing more. We do find the ECD. Unfortunately, that's going to be too expensive to cast, and I talk about this. I was talking about this while I was streaming too. The ECD is going to be 7, and they're counting too to see how much ECD is going to cost, and like if they can. You know, if they're allowed to kind of tap out for other stuff now, seeing if they can go in. Very good. It's like the same assessment of like sizing up your opponent's you know, chip stack and poker. You get to see what they're working with, you know. And we've got Kurega coming down here, so draw 2, pretty strong play overall. And I think here, since they don't have a target for ECD, they want to take the removal for later, which is very stressful for us. We don't like that at all. Because like what else is the ECD gonna do, you know? And that's a really good minus for the ECD in case we do have our own ECD anyway, even if we can't cast it. Plus if we have Mythos, we can copy the ECD, remove Teferi, remove Kurega, one of those two. So just really heads up play by the opponent here, bouncing that. I didn't realize how good of a play that was until I started to reanalyze it a bit. They have Cavalier of Flame, which is pretty tough. I think what I opt into here is I count my mana, and I realize that I can't kill Cavalier of Flame, which is kind of a difficult issue. So we discard, draw a bunch. So they have a grip full of cards, which is just scary, because their board state's good too, you know? It's very hard to come back from this situation, honestly. But I mean, we even it out a little bit here. We get to draw a card, block Kurega, and we actually kill him, which is nice. So we double check our mana, just making sure that we're not punting here somehow. Like making sure that we can't make a 5 shark or something. So, and then we take the damage, go down to 13. Teferi, I almost instantly cast this. I'm trying to see if this is worth it. Because I'm not going to be able to counter their Cavalier, even if I minus it. So it's like right now it's almost worth it to, I think what I'm planning is to, this takes me a while, and I don't even know what the right decision is here. You could definitely write like 3 essays on this turn. We have so many options. I think I go Elspeth Conquers Death, and then I hold up the Omen to get more cards and such, rotating in and whatnot. And exiling the Cavalier here is actually pretty key, because then they can't bring it back with ECD. Like, Kurega is still a good target. And like I'm trying to decide here whether it's worth it or whether I want to try to wait until they ECD. I just ECD anyway, because it forces their ECD, which is really nice. So we get to exile the Cavalier, and then we play Omen since we can't bluff a counter spell, since Teferi says no to that. And the way that I look at it here, I think, is that if I'm playing around the ECD, oof, that Shatter to the bottom, man. I wish I had kept that on top. Now that I look back at it, man, against Fires, I think I should keep that on top every time. I think that's how you win these games. So instead of deploying creatures here, they have to deploy Elspeth Conquers Death to get that off the table. Otherwise, they lose the battle of value here. And I think they even -3 this again to make it so that we can't ECD their ECD, which is pretty tough. But, you know, we have to fight through it anyway. We can't control what our opponent's doing if they have Teferi especially. Only kind of reactions we get are like, you know, Theon. Okay, we're done with it. I'm recording this after a really long stream, so I apologize for the low energy levels in the video. I hope I'm doing an okay enough job for it though. So now they get that exiled. We can still pay for a dispute at this point, which is nice. And now when they go to cast Elspeth Conquers Death, we can try to dispute it, or not dispute, but neutralize it. So we just take that down to 9, very close to death here. Like, had they had a Cavalier here, it would have been really brutal. Like Cavalier plus a dispute background or something. Not background, but back up. There we go. Would have been tough. I don't think they could give it haste if we had the dispute, though. No, they could. They could. Absolutely could. So we have to counter this. There's no choice. We would like to counter something else if we were allowed, but we just have to counter that card because that card just makes it so their next card resolves anyway. So we just lose if we let that go through. So now they are tapped out. We're asking for something one time off the top. I can see my old webcam. I don't know what I'm asking for. Probably like another ECD or a Mythos to kind of secure this. Neutralize is not bad though. I think that I opt into bouncing the Elspeths with Teferi, like with a -3, drawing a card, and then holding up the neutralize to protect against the ECD. And this is where the turning point sort of happens. And this is a super like seesaw match. Like it keeps going back and forth between me and the opponent here. It's really, really close, man. So we hit the land drop. Super significant here. I checked to see how much mana I have. Like I always usually just highlight my card to check how much mana, and they're also counting my mana as well, seeing how much they can pay for, like for dispute and such. I feel like it's a really bad idea to actually click on your lands. That'll probably be a tips and tricks video eventually, but don't do that. Don't highlight lands. It lets your opponent know what you're thinking, that you're counting up to play around a dispute, and you can play into that if like your opponent knows about it or whatever. And then I think they try to cast Bone Crusher here, and I just cash out on this dispute since it's going to be useless for the rest of the game. Yep, exactly what happens. So boop, gets disputed. We know that they don't have a dispute. Well, actually we don't because of Teferi. We can't read the engine there. So we're definitely coming out of it. I don't know why the opponent plays that land. They must have a lot of lands in hand, but I would almost hold the cycle lands at this point, especially since they just cashed out on a dispute. So we crack Fabled. I'm just getting rid of one of their Vantress right now, I think. I might be thinking about it. I actually tap my lands so that I can actually Field of Ruin end of turn on top of casting Yorion here, which I think is pretty okay. Looking back at it, like scrying with the Omen also would have been fine. We're down to 9 minutes on the timer. We've been playing kind of slow, but I feel like that's how you win these really long matchups. So here we go. That's going to come up. So we're just waiting to see what our opponent does. We have Omen to chump if we need to. We've got Shatter if they overcommit to the table. We're in like a pretty okay spot. We have no responses to this. We could like try to do something, but it doesn't really amount to much. Like we don't actually draw any cards on our turn. The most we could do is like scry and look for an answer. But we're more concerned about the creatures that he's playing after fires at this point. So here's Kenny. So we actually have a really, yeah, I think what happens is they give this haste, which is, you know, obvious, like duh, before combat, you give it haste, of course. Then they swing it to Fairy, I believe. They might swing at HP, but I doubt it. I think they just go, they go to Fairy. And then we crack Field of Ruin, leaving open, like, you know, whatever mana, it doesn't really matter at this point. So we pop the Vantress. They float the mana, and I think they draw a card with it. It takes them a minute, so it'll be just a second. Because they want to keep exact mana up for something, I don't know what. Like maybe in case they draw into something, they can like maybe dispute or do something weird. Like it just doesn't matter. Like their mana just doesn't matter here. I don't think this much. I think maybe they have like Bone Crusher or something, or they want to represent Veto, even though, yeah, I guess representing Veto there is pretty fair. Because if they actually get to kill the Teferi, if I don't block, then they could use a card. So I'm just casting Omen of the Sun, flashing it in there. And then I think I triple block here. Just in case they have a boost or something weird, like I don't know. Like I just do it to do it, I think, honestly. Might as well, right? Might as well get some of those soldiers in on the action. We draw into Birth, which isn't great. I think I cast this anyway. And then I try to figure out if it's worth bouncing the Omen or bouncing the other Omen, like the Sun versus the Sea here. And I think I play the Birth first, I believe. I go white mana, blue mana, Birth. And I'm trying to think if scrying's worth it here. Yeah, I remember talking about this. This is a really close turn. Like on what we wanted to do with our mana exactly. So thin the deck, shuffle before we do Omen, basically. And Omen gets us the most amount of cards. Sun gets us the most amount of life. But I think for me, it's more important to... it's like I played Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo for that one. So we draw into a Dispute, which is actually not like the worst card, the absolute worst. It's pretty bad, like don't get me wrong, but you know, we can work with it. We bottom the Sun, which I almost regret now because it's a non-land. And then we're just ECDing so that way our Dispute can actually be online at some point or another. And we're still holding it up full mana, I think. No, it's just 1 mana. We don't have the 3 mana Dispute. So if they cast ECD or something, they just get it. And we don't even get like a response. So that's kind of tough. So here comes Kenny. I think they actually tap out for like a Sphinx of Foresight. They try to cast it, and then we just dispute this thing, which is awesome. Feels so good in this moment to do this. Just the fact that we had the dispute. This is like another turning point. Like I said, like they were swinging with Kenny. They had a really good turn, really powerful, but we're slowly peeling it back as players right now. Like, so now this gets haste and trample, so we don't even bother to block this. They just go face, actually, so I think we do block it. If it was at Teferi, no blocks. No blocks at all. Jeez, I've got to stop. I need some water for some energy. Chemisters is actually not terrible. Gives us lots of draws for the course of the game, which is nice. So I think I can shatter at instant speed, so I just do that for the most part. I'm pretty sure this is the turn that's really, really, really close. Like, I think they play Cavalier of Flames, and we decide to let it resolve before Kenrith blows up. Yeah, this is a really dicey turn. I remember this being really stressful for me. So they pitched like 2 cards, I think. No, they pitched all 3 disputes, now I remember. Yeah. That's pretty crazy. They found them all, dude. So this doesn't really matter. Like, it does and it doesn't. Like, their attack power doesn't matter, right? Because they're going to draw a card anyway. And the damage off of Cavalier isn't based off of its health. It's based off of the amount of lands in the graveyard for them. So they're going to swing both at face, of course, because this is lethal if we don't do anything about it. So I block anyway, just in case they want to pump. I'm trying to bait them into a pump. And then we just shatter, which helps us a lot, honestly. And we take 7 and we go down to 8. So this is like... This is close, man. This is pretty much the turn. They shock that in. This is the moment. Just one time off the top. Whoosh. Dovin's Veto. I need it real bad. Come on, one time. Whoosh. One time, Heart of the Cards. Need it. Still work. Still works. And like chat spams emotes. So then we just develop Yorion here, just kind of chilling out. That was a super crazy clip though. Like super good super good luck. And we just lock it down from this point. I think they scoop pretty the Yorion heart, the waifu heart emote, the Streamlabs thing. Just like right there. And I think they try to like I think they try to Elspeth Conquers Death. To try to get this going. And we draw Mythos too, which is just a really good follow-up. There's a point where I almost copy the Mythos here. I almost copy the ECD that they play, but I just end up Tails Ending it anyway. Such a good game of Magic though. This whole match, this best of 3, was some of my favorite Magic in such a long time, man. It was so good. So nice, dude. And yep, they just Elspeth. We can't Tails End that, but we can Tails End the trigger for it, which is what we do. And they can't respond even if they had like a dispute or they had something. They can't do it because of Teferi 3-head. So we just instantly Tails End that. And then they're thinking about scrying, but like they pretty much know that the game is over, that they can't really break through this wall of creatures and Narset being able to draw, etc. So we just kind of close it out there real strong. So yeah, if you guys enjoy the deck guides, all of this good stuff, the gameplay, like the best of 3, because I'm going to use this probably for 2 videos. One for the best of 3 matchup overall for like the whole gameplay. So this thing, all of this gameplay will be on a separate video, like the whole best of 3 match. I'm going to capture that and go back and cover it. And then this is also going to be part of the deck guide video that you're watching right now too, potentially. Or if you're watching the other video, yeah, you guys get it. But anyway, appreciate you guys chilling out and being awesome watching the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the content. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below, or simply stop by my stream. We can chat. You can ask about like, you know, plays, changes with the list, etc. And I do a deck guide like this at least twice a week usually. Usually it's like 2 to 3 times. So if you guys are interested in those, they're usually on Aether Hub, they're on YouTube. There's even a playlist on my main page that just shows all of the deck guides that we've done so far for Standard. So appreciate you guys, and I will see you next time.